And welcome back to the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Today, all about transfers, part 2. Now, starting with Joao Cancelo's move to Bayern Munich. I would argue this is the biggest surprise of the transfer window. Kind of came out of nowhere. And based on the reporting and kind of the explanations that have been offered for this, it sounds like it has a lot to do with playing time and Pep Guardiola just not really feeling it with Cancelo's behavior. And I will defend Pep on this. I haven't talked about this too much on this show, but I talk about it all the time in the context of specifically guys like Christian Pulisic. Guaranteed starters just don't really exist at a place like Manchester City. Outside of maybe, 1 to 5 guys. Ederson, Haaland, De Bruyne, Rodri because of the position he plays and the way they play. Maybe. I mean, that's even stretching it. It doesn't matter how good you are. There is just inherently rotation. Guys come in and out. If you get injured, you have a hard time getting back into the squad. If you start scoring goals or playing really well, and this is true of not just Manchester City, but true of Chelsea, true of Bayern Munich, true of PSG, whoever. Right? Guy starts playing well for a month. You're just not getting back in the squad. And then you might get back in the squad and you start playing well. And all of a sudden, you're there for a month and a half, and you can't get taken out of the starting lineup. Right? This is kind of what we've seen with Pulisic. He has these stretches where he gets to start regularly, then he gets hurt, and then he's got to work his way all the way back into the starting lineup because there just aren't guaranteed spots. And that's kind of where Cancelo found himself. It hasn't been a great season for him. I still consider him probably the best left back in the world, if not number 2. It's not like his talent just disappeared. But he seemed to be really, really unhappy and kind of unwilling to accept more of a rotational role, and that he wasn't going to get every single game at one of the outside back spots. And to me, that's just part of the deal in Manchester City. It's part of what you sign up for when you go there. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are. It's just how it works. From Cancelo's perspective, I also understand why he's frustrated and not a fan of the way that this is working out and wanting more game time. It's just those two things. You got to understand the context of the situation you're in, that this was always a possibility in Manchester City. And then there's also, this whole thing is just weird. It makes you believe something had to have happened because of just the fact that City and Pep let Cancelo leave, and it does not appear he's coming back. And also the fact that Cancelo was not a regular starter at the World Cup, which also really confused me. So there's clearly something here. Pep was not the only one who saw this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But there is a trend here that needs to be acknowledged. All that being said, from a Manchester City side, they're just outside of De Bruyne and Haaland and maybe Ederson. I just don't think anybody can be that valuable for that team because of its depth. Now, Cancelo is up there on that list, but to me, he is a level below those 3 guys. And Rico Lewis is here. Rico Lewis allows Pep to rotate the squad actually, maybe the better phrase is turn over the squad, which is something he's talked about. It's something Sir Alex Ferguson talked about. This idea that when you are continuously expected to win. You have to get fresh perspectives. You got to get fresh players in there. You can't just keep giving the same message with the same manager to the same players for 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons in a row. You have got to just cycle people in and out. So Rico Lewis gives you a fresh, more than capable body who was programmed from them to play in this system in that position. And, Kyle Walker is still there. And all these center backs have just kind of turned into capable left backs. Ake, Laporte. It's still a little strange to me. Sometimes I scratch my head at it, but Pep seems to be happy with it. So while it looks like they're thin at the position, they do have a lot of bodies that can play it. So Cancelo wasn't necessarily expendable as kind of an unnecessary, unneeded piece. But there are ways to get around this. I don't think it's that big of a deal for Manchester City. It is a much bigger deal for Bayern Munich and what he could mean for this season. I keep talking about this, that somebody's going to make Bayern win this league. And they very well may have done it without Cancelo. They are still top of the table, and that means a great deal psychologically and just for the way these title races work and the question of can anybody catch them and ultimately beat them. But this is the kind of move that could just close the door. I really think that highly of Cancelo. I would not be surprised at all if we look back and say, yeah, this move is the reason the Bayern won the Bundesliga. For two reasons. One, obviously, he's one of the best players in his position at the world, so now you can play him and Alphonso Davies together at outside back. They might be the two best outside backs in the world. They're certainly both in the top 5. That is an incredible luxury. And I talked about this in the summer, and I thought Nasser Mazraoui was going to be the answer. If you're looking for a hole to poke in this Bayern team outside of the fact they haven't been very good this season, but from a roster construction, a squad standpoint, that right back spot still needs to get solved. And here you go. Just plop Joao Cancelo in there. He gives you kind of this different type of creativity, different type of dynamism on the ball in possession, a different way to break teams down, right? He's not super speedy Alphonso Davies, but he gives you another creator from the back. He complements Davies. So I really like it from that perspective as well, that now you have two more than capable two of the better attacking weapons from the defensive standpoint, outside of maybe Liverpool's. And even that hasn't been that great this season. That's kind of what Bayern are building here with Davies and Cancelo. So ultimately for me, this is much more about what it means for Bayern than Manchester City. It's just fascinating that this all went down and Pep approved him leaving, because he is still one of the best players at his position in the world. And he's comfortable on both the left and right side. There's an incredible amount of value to what Joao Cancelo does. It just sounds like he wasn't getting the playing time he needed. He didn't handle it in the way Pep wanted him to. And at that point, Pep said, thanks for your service. We're good without you.